know anything about the Mastrogeorge in Plumari? What was their background? What was their work? What was their...
All I know is that they were so poor that...
Dad was the 12th of 13 children.
12th of the 13th.
Yeah. And they were poor. Barbara will fill that in a minute. But Dad left home when he was 12. He was born 1894, left Plumari in 1906. And the main reason was because they couldn't afford to keep them all, and some of his brothers, if not all of them, had already left.
And do you know where they dispersed, where they...
I can't answer that. Barbara may know, but they ended up in New Zealand, the majority of them. Dad went to South Africa first.
Yes, so in other words, at a very young child, he ends up in Cairo or Alexandria, and then slowly makes his way all the way down to South Africa.
Because in those days, they used to be able, those kids of that age, used to board ships and get kicked in the bottom and, okay, sleep there under that bench.
Stowaways.
Yeah, stowaways. They were stowaways, but they were sort of accepted stowaways.
Yes.
And that's how he got there, and then unfortunately I can't give you the real background.
At the reunion it says about him,
Okay. So in other words, he ends up in South Africa. Did he ever talk about what he did in these places? Was he always a restaurant hand, or he
would have been a labourer, that sort of job, labourer type.
Yeah.
He was uneducated.
because he left so young that and they had to leave, and it said they had to leave because of poverty.
You said that the family, your grandfather, the Mastrogeorge, what was his name?
Dimitri.
Dimitrios, what did he do? Was he
was a carpenter.
A carpenter.
And so he went to Asia Minor for work.
Yes.
And so this woman, because she was a living widow, Zondohira, with so many children and the husband away, so he went there to send money. But every time he came back, pop another child.
Now, your grandmother's name?
Irini was my father's mother's name.
Yes.
Irini.
Oh, Irini.
So Irini had to look after 12 kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, 13 actually.
Well, 13.
He was the 12th.
He was the 12th.
And she died of starvation during the Second World War.
Oh,
She ate from the carob tree, and she died.
Anyway, so Dad ends up in South Africa. Okay?
Yes.
And he makes his way, according to here, he makes his way to New Zealand in 1913.
Yes.
Okay, so
But it said
what drew him to New Zealand?
His brothers were here.
His brothers were here.
His older brothers
we
were
didn't.
here.
You see, we didn't know anything. 2 of them died here in the influenza epidemic of 1918.
And I'm the only one in our family with 2 Christian names, and I was named after both of them.
Because Stan's got a double barrel.
I've got 2
Christian
names.
names.
Stanley
Vasilios.
Anthony, and reading from this, which is quite correct, 2 other brothers, Stan and Anthony, died in New Zealand as a result of the 1919 influenza epidemic.
So he already had 2 brothers here.
Left them and started to make his own way, uneducated, but he had a bit of nous, make his own way, and I know he ended up in Wanganui.
You said Wanganui, no?
Yeah, he ended up in Wanganui,
I don't know,
where
I
he
never
opened
knew
a
that.
restaurant.
I didn't know that.
Do we know roughly what time
No,
this
I
happened?
don't know.
Okay. Alright, so he managed to save a bit of money and to open up his own business.
Yes,
It
either that
says in this
or...
article, I don't know if it's in yours or in this, that he landed in 13, but he came to Wellington in 15. So he didn't put up with it for too long.
Right, that's
Is it
right.
in
Okay.
your article?
Before coming to Wellington in 1915.
Oh, you've got it.
I'm not sure. I believe he went to Wanganui before that.
Yes,
But-
it said that too.
So he went from 13, between 13 and 15 he went, okay, we
Think
will
so,
assume
yeah,
that that's
think
what
so,
he did.
think so.
He was very successful up there in his restaurant
In
Wanganui.
Wanganui. How
And
far is Wanganui?
It's about a 3-hour drive, so it would be 100 and up to 200 k's away
From Wellington.
from Wellington.
Okay. So did this cafe or restaurant, did it have a name?
No, I do not.
We don't know it. I didn't even know until I read this article, and I got that from my niece yesterday. I didn't even know that he had even touched Wanganui.
Oh, well, I was well aware of that.
Okay.
And he I think he employed some other Greeks up there. I assume he came to Wellington because there might have been starting a cluster of Greek people here, and he then opened another restaurant, and I think
The Empire.
the first one was the Empire Cafe,
Which is renowned. That's renowned. That's
In Willis Street.
in Willis
Yeah, Willis
Street.
Street.
No,
which
not so
is-
renowned.
No.
It's renowned.
Oh,
It's
it's renowned.
famous.
Oh,
yes.
yes. No.
And that is on the
Xapos Manor.
site. That is on the site of the existing Bank of New Zealand, big complex down. Do you know Willis Street? Been there? No. But anyway, it was part of that.
No, so I can.
And funnily enough, just by coincidence, that was turned at some stage into a shop owned by somebody, and I managed the property. In later on, before the Bank of New Zealand came.
Tell me
along.
something. If you walked into the Empire, can you describe it for me? What was on the left? What was on the right?
No, I wasn't born there.
We grew up when he opened. He sold it, the Empire. He gave it to Jim, didn't he? To Jim Andonara.
Andonari.
And then,
he sold that
he
to.
went up to he went up and he opened the Tiffins, a restaurant, and then from the restaurant he turned it into a milk bar, and as I don't know if it says in your article or in this article, he opened he opened the second restaurant, the second milk bar, because the first one was the Tip Top around the corner
okay.
from him.
All right, okay.
But they're not milk bar how you know milk bar, which is more what we call a dairy.
Old-fashioned type milk bar.
We call it.
It says here that you returned to Greece in 1924 to marry.
To marry our
through
mother
a broker, but they had a broker.
by arrangement.
Of course, right.
And also, I'll just read you an excerpt here. He planned to return to Greece to marry in 1924, but diverted to Egypt when his father warned the likelihood of him being conscripted into the armed forces.
You know,
if he-
Can you tell me a little bit about the Alatelides? Like, what were they? Were they farmers? What were they?
No, he was a merchant.
Your grandfather?
So he plied between Lesvos and Turkey.
And what's grandfather's name?
Panagiotis.
Panagiotis.
So Panagiotis, did he have his own kahiki?
No,
Or was he just a merchant?
No,
He was quite
he
well-to-do,
was
I would
wealthy,
think.
but he
quite-
lost it when the Turks had the uprising in
23.
22. Whatever it was,
And-
he lost it all. That's why our mother, when my father asked for an akoritsi, and I don't want a dowry, my grandfather had 3 daughters, but one of them died, Persephone died, so my mother offered herself to come. And she never once, did she? She never once complained. She never hit us.
No, she was tremendous.
She came from good stock. She was higher in stock than our father was.
Yes, she was. The marriage was arranged between Mum's father and Dad's mother.
Okay.
And when my wife and I went back to Greece for the first time, and we were taken down into the Plumari, into the village, with by our cousin, my mother's first cousin, Evangelia, and she introduced me as being Hariklia's son. They said, Hariklia, we remember her. She was the one who should have gone to university. So she had education, she had good nous, she was the one who kept our family going. There were 7 children, I was the youngest, Barbara's the eldest. She kept the family going while Dad concentrated on the milk bar, but she also helped him in the milk bar.
Did she ever say when she first got here how difficult it was? Like her first
Yes.
impressions?
Yes, but not complainingly. She told us, because if you remember, we have electric washing machine, we have good soaps, we have hot water on tap. If the boys didn't go and cut the firewood to light the copper, she didn't have hot water. Then she'd have to stand down there and use the wringer. And we didn't have electric hot water, and so to have a bath, because our fireplace heated the kazanie, we had to light the fire to be able to have a bath, but at least we wouldn't have to but she had to boil the copper. And they,
Now, you grew up.
You add to this, when Mum arrived as a new bride, and Dad took her into the house,
Oh, yeah.
it was full of a lot of young men, bachelors who were living with Dad, and who expected her to cook and wash and all that sort of thing. I think she sorted that out pretty quickly, but you know, she was expected to do that. No, anything to add?
No, you said it just right.
And I think she sorted it out pretty
And
quickly.
where were they living at that stage? Do you know?
Oh,
We lived in
Dad's
Edge
house,
Hill.
in Edge Hill.
But in number 18 to start with, and then in time we moved from 18 over to number 9 and the same street.
Where that photo's taken.
Yes. Now, and Mum, did she help Dad at the shop at all?
Oh yes, a lot.
Yes, but not as much.
Initially.
She helped more in the Brandon than she did at the.
No. She helped in the Sunshine as necessary. But
Well, I just remember that you boys had to
Yeah,
go. We
well,
girls had to stay and do.
we
the
had to
work.
go as boys. When the big shop, Dad had the Sunshine Milk Bar first of all.
And where was that? Sorry.
That was 94 Manners Street, opposite the Region.
And what time span are we looking at?
I would say from I don't know, but it's got to be from the 30s.
It'll be in Blade's books anyway.
Yeah, it would be there from the 30s. But in you were married about 48 or 49?
I was married 48.
No, this is
48.
Oh, that's yours.
In
Where's that other?
Barbara was
not
married
that
in 1948, and we had the big shop then, didn't we?
No, I came back, when I came back in
No.
in 52 it was
But
converted.
Ted, are you sure?
I
thought it was before that, and I'll tell you why. Because Ted Pope was the chef then, and we wouldn't have had him in the small one. So that's why I'm saying it. And he was Dad's chef in
Well,
the
that's
big
right,
shop,
because he
and he
prepared for
catered.
the wedding.
He
That's
catered
right.
for Barbara's wedding, and I remember vividly he had a big crayfish like that standing up, as a decoration. In those days, we could get crayfish easily.
You know, a lot of people say that George brought out so many Greeks.
He did.
All relations though, or else like people like Apostle Levamvora who died just a few weeks ago. He brought them out.
Is that because of a special need? Because he needed hands, like
He
reliable
didn't bring them
hands?
out to work for him.
Oh, no.
He brought them out
Yeah,
as
Glitose.
a
Give them a chance.
give them a chance, and
They were
because
just
of
good
the
people, our parents.
he was just that was his attitude, his nature.
Altruistic.
He was terribly gentle. He was a gentle
He
man.
was.
At the Sunshine, how many, like, you remember the Sunshine?
Oh,
right?
vividly.
Yeah.
I worked there a lot. I gave up my job in
When they
1956, and the next brother up from me gave up his job as well to go into the Sunshine, because we knew it backwards. We'd been working there for years, to go in and help our third brother, the oldest brother, to look after the shop, to take the burden off each one, so Mum and Dad could go back to Greece for as long as they wanted to.
Can you describe the Sunshine?
It's narrow, it wouldn't be much wider than here, and
I've got pictures of it.
going into it, on the right hand wall were all mirrors, and there were milkshake machines and plates and glasses and cupboards underneath with glasses and everything, and then there was a narrow bit there behind the counter, and then there was the counter with refrigerators where we kept the milk and the ice cream and everything else you wanted, all stainless steel, and then on top of that, again, that would have been like that I suppose, and then on top of that there was the counter. So it wouldn't, and then yeah, it might be a bit wider than here, and then there was the other more sort of a corridor or a walkway in the shop itself, and then after the counter there was this about that wide walkway, I suppose, and then there were the cubicles.
And how many people could fit in the Sunshine?
Oh, that's a good question. 4 to a cubicle at least, so you'd get 30 minimum there. Minimum, I can't.
Yeah.
Could be more.
Yeah.
And then there was a little alcove at the back that had more. But when Dad took the lease over of of Ramsay's auction mart, which was behind it. He punched a hole in the wall, and that had seating for nearly 100 people.
Wow.
In addition.
So tell me, what were the busiest days? What were your busiest days?
Oh, traditionally Thursday, Friday, sometimes Saturday, holidays.
And what drew people to your milk bar?
Oh, just the quality of the food, the niceness of the people. Who knows? The service. I can't.
But what, was your dad famous for anything?
Yes, he was. He was famous for his roasts,
Right.
and he did stews. He used to buy pies. We made our own ice cream. I used to make it. All the boys made ice cream.
Can you tell me your secret ingredient?
My secret ingredient? No, I wouldn't have a clue now. But what we used to do, to make the ice cream, you had to make what was called a mixture. And in the mixture you put milk and malt and butter and all sorts of things.
Did you have a picture theatre near you or anything like
Right
that?
opposite. Right opposite.
So
opposite the Regent Theatre.
Okay, so you always had, you know, the intermission before, after the pictures.
Well, yes. Then it proved not profitable to keep open afterwards. So we used to, after a few years, we closed about 9 o'clock because the intermission came out roughly, say, 8:45, and after that we just closed up.
Oh, really? So you didn't wait for the afters?
No, because it just wasn't profitable. There wasn't enough business coming in. And you had to wait a couple of hours, and then you had to do all the cleaning up after, and then we had to get up and come to work next day.
At the time, was the milk bar 7 days, or was law different then? Was it a 6-day thing?
It might have been 7 days, but not in my time.
Okay.
But 6 days was plenty.
Yeah.
9 in the morning usually till 11 at night was plenty, and then Dad cut the hours down a bit to cut it. And then we would, when it wasn't profitable, we would close the back part and only have the front part open.
That's right. Now, and how many people worked at the Sunshine?
Oh, can't answer that. Dad always had family to fall back on, the boys especially. And the girls helped too, but nothing, the boys were expected, and we didn't mind. It was part of what we were brought up to, and we understood it. And we assimilated into the work easily, and so you didn't have to say, oh Stan, this is how you do this. You just come down and we need you. So we'd rush down, and we got into it straight away. To answer how many worked there, and I really can't. I don't.
Were they always Greeks?
Oh no. Mostly Kiwis actually.
Really?
And Maoris, some Chinese. Whoever suited the job.
And at the time, did people come and ask for work? How did it work?
Occasionally they would have done. I don't remember anyone coming and asking me when I had a say in things. But one or two who had worked for, or no, not one or two, a number of them who had worked for Dad often came back if they left and gone out of Wellington or elsewhere or whatever, often came back and asked if he had a job.
Okay.
And of course if they were any good, he would always find a job. If they weren't any good, there were no vacancies.
Tell me, how does Mum balance everything? 7 kids?
Well, she did because she had that ability. She was very energetic. She wolfed her food down because she never had time to sit down. She was always on the go. If she were here sitting talking to you and her eyes were good, because in latter years they failed, she would be crocheting or knitting because she felt guilty if she wasn't doing something. That was the way they were brought up, you see. But she was marvellous, and she would sort the house out and then go down for the busy period, come back, and she'd always come back and have a meal ready for Dad when he came home at night. And another thing about Dad, when he came home at night and he was eating, and then he'd suddenly remember, oh, I've got to ring the plumber. And I know,
That's our mother.
I know my wife said to him one night, Dad said, oh, I've got to ring the plumber. And my wife said, my wife is a Kiwi, oh, Papa, you can't do that. He said, why not? Well, it's 11 o'clock. Well, I'm up. So I'm up, he's up. And that's fair enough. It's not done, but the point is, that's the only time he could ring. And when he thought about it, you know, when you're running around trying to sort things out at a milk bar or that sort of establishment, you can't
You have
always
a
think of
whiskey?
other things.
Barbara, can you tell me one thing? What's it like having a milk bar during the war? During the war years?
You've got to ask that again because I was a girl. Look, we had to follow the tradition of the Greek girls when our mother left New Zealand, when she left Greece. And so the girls stayed home and the boys went to play tennis and the boys went swimming and the boys went bicycle riding when they weren't working. But we had to stay home. We were never allowed to go to the shop. But you see, one day my father brought an American sailor home in 42.
In 42?
Yeah, when the American fleet came here, when they came to fight the Pacific. And the rest is history. And then we were married in 48.
Talking about the
Oh yes.
talking about the war years. I was
I smell
quite young. In fact, I was very young. So I don't remember a lot, but I do remember some, and I can remember what my brothers told me. We used to have a lot of servicemen used to come in, and they were good. But unfortunately, on one occasion that I can remember being told, there was a drunk United States serviceman, and he started throwing things around, and there was damage all over the place, mirrors, glasses, everything. Anyway, they got the MPs who sorted him out very, very quickly, and then next day somebody turned up and said, "Don't worry, just get it all fixed and tell us how much it is." So there was no problem at all. But it's always a shock for that to happen. Now, another big problem that we used to have was with 6 o'clock closing. The hotels used to close at 6 o'clock. That was the law in New Zealand for many, many years. And it caused people to drink quickly, and the closer it got to 6 o'clock, the more quickly they drank.
Time, gentlemen.
So we would get a few drunks from time to time, and that's also we as boys, and the more we grew up, we were very aware of that. One time, my two older brothers were there. I wasn't there, but a drunk started to have a go at Dad, and I don't know what happened to him, but poor guy, not Dad, the drunk. My two brothers, one was giving him one, and the other one was giving one from the other side. So before the police came. But he raised his hand to Dad, and that was...
Tell me, how did the New Zealanders treat Dad?
Marvellously. He was very well
were
respected.
lucky.
Here you are. There's an article, his obituary in the paper. That's how the New Zealanders treated him. Respected citizen. So he was in the generic sense, he was loved by all. He was very gentle, very fair. He didn't like to cause arguments. He actually was quite wealthy in the 30s, in the Depression. Lost a lot through bad management, not his. He left it to his lawyer to sort out.
And there was the what's his name of 1932 as well.
The Depression, of course.
Depression.
But he owned a lot of property. Obviously had mortgages and things. And anyway, because of bad management and the Depression and everything, he lost a lot. He never rose above it. He never worried about that again. He just concentrated on his shop and his family.
And his family.
What was he like to work for?
Marvellous. Marvellous.
Tell me from what aspect? What, like?
Well, only he expected you, he told you what to do, once he knew that you'd learned to do it, he expected you to do it.
He was patient.
But yeah, that's a good word, patient. Basically not critical.
Like
He might say hurry up, but
And just like alone, and you'll not hear anybody, leave alone the Greek people who, emiss, but people who are far out of our circle, when you say something about Mr. George, they just say, "Posso tu na agaposa."
Yeah, like what was he like as a personality, as a character? Did he have a sense of humour? Did he have
sense of humour.
Can you tell me an example of that sense of humour?
Well, you saw it in the orchestration.
Yeah, I know.
And those were the guys who were living in the house when Mum came.
Yeah. There's a lot of picnics too, like a lot of picnic photos, And George seems to be like the life of the party, like the character.
He was
or the
respected
organizer.
to be the sort of patriarch.
I would say he was so much an organizer as he was a good team member.
Okay.
Would you
But
say that?
yes, but they always wanted him to be there, and Mum as a family, and they were respected
we're
as
talking
the
about
sort
Daddy
of the patriarchs.
Okay. Now, tell me, when Dad went back to Plumari for the first time, right?
That was 1955. No, sorry, 57.
Now, how did he take that?
Oh, I'm not saying for the first time, but that's the time I remember.
That's the only time. That's
The only time. They loved it.
Do you reckon it passed through his mind when he was there? Why don't I stay? Or this is.
I doubt it. I can't tell you that, but I doubt it.
I don't think he ever had past. He didn't waste time in past regrets.
Exactly. No, that's good.
And if he had them, he never shared them.
No.
He never weighed you down with his problems. Problemata. He mightn't have had any money in the bank. All I remember is our mother sometimes, she would always see him to the front door when he was leaving in the morning. And sometimes she'd say, Γιώργη, χρειάζομαι χρήματα. Γιατί τα θέλεις? Για να πάρω παπούτσια για το Στέλιο. Μα χθες αγόρασες παπούτσια, αυτό ήταν για τον Παναγιώτη.
Now tell me, Dad within the Greek community.
Yep.
Like he was active, wasn't he?
He
was
very
always
active.
there. He was always in the photos.
Yeah, and he was president for. He did his time on the committee as president.
So Dad, all right. So milk bar, president of the community, family man. How does he deal with all of this?
Our mother.
She was the
Kingpin.
The kingpin. She was the connecting rods.
She was.
And she looked after all the children. She did go into all the school interviews.
In those days you had to cook, you had to knit and you had to sew. We didn't have the ready-to-wear cheaper shops.
Her command of the language was fantastic. And now you tell Vasily about the doctors and things.
Yeah, like
No, well, you
I've
know from
heard.
everybody that she took them to the doctor.
That's right. That's what I've
She
heard.
was the she was the interpreter.
A few needed a lawyer and
They
she'd
would
take
bring,
them
yeah.
to lawyers.
She would bring
Whatever
them
they
and say,
needed. Oh, you were sick? She'd drop it. We would take over, and she'd go to come to you.
but
And then Jim had meningitis, and she used to go to the hospital every day, but she never complained. All she complained about was we girls had to clean the house on Saturday. Probably we had linoleum floors, no carpeting, just a strata in the hall, and she'd say when she was doing it, "Τώρα μόλις καθάρισα το σπίτι. Αφήστε το καθαρό για μισή ώρα. Θέλω μόνο μισή ώρα και ύστερα κάνετε ό,τι θέλετε."
so she, as Barbara said, she would drop everything, and all these women, and a lot of them, I don't know the proportion, but it was well over 50%. In fact, it would be closer to 80. Couldn't speak English at all.
Yeah, that's right.
Might even be 90, 95.
Some of them maybe don't know.
And so they needed someone like Mum who could, who was prepared to take them to the doctor and do all the interpreting and
She'd help
sort
them
out their problems.
when their children were born. She'd
There were
help
all sorts of
from
things.
her experience. She would help them. Remember, we used to have cloth diapers then, and well, you won't remember, but we had cloth diapers, and they had to be boiled, and they had to be.
And was Mum active in the Greek community? Was she
Oh,
asked to
Yes,
help
she
out?
belonged to the Philoptoko. She belonged. Well, it was only the women were only in the Philoptoko, and she if she had to bake, she baked. She
She did
just
her share too.
did. She did.
Tell me something, right? In the house, do we speak Greek? In the
Yes.
house?
Only.
Only.
Milati Romeka, and we talk sometimes
Barbara
in the tram.
especially.
We talk sometimes in the tram, and then we talk to each other. We'd say, "Βλέπεις αυτή εκεί πέρα, κοίτα το καπέλο φορεί." And one day I got a rabbit punch from my father in the tram because he was with us, and he said, "Στο σπίτι θα μιλάτε Ρωμαϊκά, αλλά έξω θα μιλάτε Αγγλικά."
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now
I
me
remember
being
because
the
I-
youngest, 7, I had support from my elders, but Mum and Dad,
We talked English
their
a lot, mate.
attitude changed a lot because
Okay,
they were
that's
assimilating
right,
a lot
that's
more.
right.
And as these older ones grew up, of course, it happened more.
Well, the
and
more
then
and more came in.
I wasn't forced or required to speak Greek in the house as much as they were.
That's right.
But you see, I couldn't speak English till I was 5.
There.
And then Jim, when he came 2 years later after me, he of course naturally would speak Greek. And then yes,
Tell me, your house must have been the centre
it was.
of a lot of social activity.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Right? Can you remember those times? Was it very busy, or was it busy all the time on a daily basis or weekends?
No, because everybody worked till the night time, and they worked Saturdays. Sundays were the eortes. But we as a family weren't invited to anybody's house for dinner because there were 7 of us. 7 children.
Mum and Dad enjoyed going out. I know they used to go out to Lower Hutt.
To the Barrises.
To the Barrises.
And to the
Yeragotegi. Have you Yeragotegi?
The
Jerises,
yes.
the Jerises.
Because they had big properties out in Lower Hutt, but it was an outing for them.
Well,
and then the men would get together.
We used to call Lower Hutt Sohorio.
Most of the men were restaurateurs, so they would, and I know Dad really enjoyed this. He would go and they'd have afternoon tea, but then the men would get into a corner and play poker or do that, and they would really enjoy it. But see, Sunday was their only day off. Then of course we'd come back home. Then we'd have to think about tomorrow, and have we got the last week's books done and the balance of the takings to bank and all that sort of thing. So. And they have to go into the shop on the way back sometimes to make sure that you take things out of the freezer, and all that sort of thing.
What did Wellington mean to your parents?
They loved it, I think.
I think so too.
And they loved it possibly because there was a Greek community here, as opposed to anywhere else in the country. There still isn't. Auckland may be starting one now, but it's taken a long, long time. And Auckland, as you know, is our biggest city, but Wellington has always been the Greek community centre. And they were part of it. They were instrumental in starting, I don't know about starting, but foundation members of the Greek community and great financial contributors.
Now, when you talk about contributors, if the Greek community or the general community needed something, did they ever approach your dad? Like, for example, if there was a rugby union, a local rugby union team that needed help or whatever it is, was Dad always in the philanthropy?
Rugby union?
No, nothing like that.
Nothing like that. Yeah, rugby union, like I don't know, like the local team wanted.
No,
because we didn't have any. Our boys weren't. The boys of Stanzier, it was from Peter on that they became interested in cricket and soccer.
Oh, but I'm just saying, if the local team wanted help.
No. We really, the Greek community thinks for the Greek community and for Greece.
Oh, okay.
Erana during the war.
Yes, and
they travelled the country. Our father travelled with Mr. Christie and Mr. Geron. Mr. Geron didn't go.
Stan Garland.
And Mr. Garland, and they went up and down the country getting money for the war effort.
And I can remember also during the war, Mum would do parcels up. I suppose a lot of the other women do. They'd do parcels up to send back to her family in Greece. Because I can remember as a youngster. I can remember as a youngster taking these parcels that big, done all sewed up with sheets and who knows what.
You had to sew them in cheesecloth.
Cheesecloth and stuff, and I'd take them, because across the road from our house was a post office, so I remember taking them over very frequently. And one of the reasons that Mum and Dad wanted to go back to Greece in 1957 was my grandmum's mother had come out here, and she had gone back to Greece. She'd been here for 5 or 6 years, but Mum wanted to go and see her before Granny died, so that was the catalyst to get them to go back.
What did Plomari mean to your parents?
Oh, it meant a lot. It was their homeland. Although New Zealand was their adopted country and they were very grateful for being here, but you can't forget your roots like me. I'm born here, but I still respect, and I'm still a Greek, but I'm Kiwi first, but you can't say anything against the Greeks because you're offending me.
There's my
that sort of thing.
She came out, your comes out and migrates here, doesn't she?
She came out to...
Yes, she did, but she didn't stay. She didn't stay forever. She died back over.
And I said, and I had come over from America because the war in Korea was on, and I brought Michael over, he had his first birthday here, and I said, γιατί θέλεις να πας πίσω στην Ελλάδα, η μητέρα μου δεν σε έχει δει τόσα χρόνια, μπλα 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 μπλα, και εκείνη είπε, θέλω να αποθάνω στον τόπο μου.
Really?
And she died the next year.
And she had that as a, you know.